How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Thorn's Jungle. Take a step in, bring your machete, because you'll need it. It is a jungle after all. Hope everyone's had a great week, and if you haven't already, jump over to my Patreon. The link will be in the description. And for as little as $3 a month, you can get a whole extra episode of Thorn's Jungle a week, as well as the video of said episode each week. So, yeah, you can listen to me or watch me, whatever you prefer. Anyway, this week's episode is about monkeys. You all know I love monkeys. I love my primates. And I actually can't believe I haven't already done an episode on this because it's pretty interesting. And it's something a lot of people wouldn't really know, but you'll know about it after this episode, and that's for sure. And that's about the Barbary rock apes. All right. Now, this isn't some sort of cryptozoological animal like it sounds. I mean, there is actually a cryptid called the rock apes, but they're in Vietnam. And actually, that's a great idea for another episode. The rock apes in Vietnam. But that is cryptozoological. This isn't. If you don't already know sort of where Gibraltar is, then I'll tell you, all right? It's basically South Spain, but it's its own sort of territory of Britain. It's an overseas territory of Britain. Back in like 17 something, it was basically claimed by the British. And it's a weird place, man. Like, you look at it on a map, it's this tiny little point that sticks out of, well, the Iberian Peninsula. Tiny little shard of land that sticks out. And the entire the entirety of Gibraltar is basically just this giant rock that like sticks out of the middle of it. It's tiny. There's only like 30,000 people or something that lives there, but it's not technically Spain, it's Britain. And right across the Strait of Gibraltar is Morocco. So you can essentially see, I'm pretty sure you can see Morocco from Gibraltar. Weird place. And the reason why I wanted to do this episode is because one of my uncles he was born in Spain, and he's not blood related to me, so I can't claim I've got any Spanish in me. But he obviously moved to the UK, then over to Perth here now. But his brother was visiting, and he lives in Gibraltar. And I was like, oh, actually, there's monkeys that live on Gibraltar. And it's actually a very weird sort of situation as to how they got to Gibraltar. Because if you don't know already, there are no native monkeys to Europe. In fact, the rock apes that live on Gibraltar are the only wild living group of monkeys in Europe. Now, what is the rock ape? So the rock ape is actually not an ape at all. It's a monkey. It is a Barbary macaque, which is native to the Atlas Mountains. So Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Gibraltar. But they're not technically native to Gibraltar. The reason why they're called apes is because they don't have a tail. So they are a macaque, and there are a lot of species of macaques, and some of them have long tails, like the long-tailed macaques. Others have really atrophied, shorter tails, diminished tails, like pig-tailed macaques, things like that. And the Barbary macaque, you can't even see any really remnants of a tail. So that's why they were called an ape. But they are a monkey, they are a macaque. Now, there is a population living on the Rock of Gibraltar. That's what they call the huge, it's like a monolith of a rock. It's not a boulder enough. It's like a mountain rock that sticks up. And there is a population or a few populations of these Barbary macaques that live throughout the Rock of Gibraltar. Occasionally they will come down into the city, but for the most part they live on and around that rock. And on the Rock of Gibraltar's like little nooks and crannies that they can hide in, they can live around. There's also a good amount of vegetation that grows around that rock. But how did they get there? And why are they still there? If they are an invasive, they're not technically invasive because they were put there on purpose. Maybe, probably. But they are an introduced species. So normally when there is introduced species to an area, there is a decent effort to try and get rid of that introduced species. But that isn't the case with the Barbary macaques, the rock apes of Gibraltar. In actual fact, where the Barbary macaques are native to, their numbers are actually declining. But on Gibraltar, the numbers are very stable, they are increasing, and they are very well protected on Gibraltar. Now, there are a few theories as to how these macaques got to Gibraltar in the first place, and it's pretty crazy because they have been on Gibraltar for a long, long time. But before we get into that, we need to go back in time a few thousand, if not million years. Now, probably 5.5 million years ago, during the Pliocene, these monkeys were native to Europe. In fact, they spread all the way up to Germany, I believe. So they were pretty widely distributed throughout Europe. Whether or not it was, what's the scientific name of the Barbary macaque? It's like Macaca sylvestris or something like that. Whether or not it was that particular species, or they speciated sort of afterwards. But there were macaques in Europe. And during the sort of last ice age, during sort of the late Pleistocene, 13,000 years ago or so, the macaques started diminishing throughout Europe. This is probably due to climate shifting and cooling, things like that. The environment was no longer suitable for the monkeys, so they just declined. So, 13,000 years ago, there were macaques in Europe. Now, a theory was that the Gibraltar population of Barbary macaques are remnants of these Pleistocene-era macaques that once were native to Europe. But they did mitochondrial DNA tests, and the DNA basically, did match the Barbary macaques that are found in northern Africa, where they're native to. So the conclusion is this isn't a remnant population of European macaques left over. They exactly match the North American macaques. Not North American, North African macaques. It would be weird if it was a North American macaque, which there are macaques in North America, but they are invasive. Anyway, so they're trying to trace back, where did these macaques come from? Why are they on Gibraltar, and how long have they actually been there? And they can date back eyewitness accounts and sort of documentation of these macaques being in Gibraltar for hundreds of years. So even before Britain captured Gibraltar back in, I think it was like 1703, the macaques were there. The rock apes were on Gibraltar. Even back in 17 03 or whenever it was, the macaques were already there. Going back even further, 1605. Now I'm going to have to read the name of this book because it is way out of my wheelhouse to even remember this or pronounce it, and I'm going to butcher this. But in his work, Historia della muy noble y mas lel ciudad de Gibraltar, which, so that's how nervous I was pronouncing that, which translates to the history of the very noble and most loyal city of Gibraltar. I should have just said that. I probably shouldn't have even tried to read the actual name of it. This was written in 1605 by Alonso Hernandez del Portillo, which was like the first chronicler, the guy that chronicled Gibraltar at the time, so documented history and all that jazz of Gibraltar. And he wrote, "But now let us speak of other and living producers, which in spite of the asperity of the rock, still maintain themselves in the mountain. There are monkeys, who may be called the true owners, with possession from time immemorial, always tenacious of the dominion, living for the most part in the eastern side in high, inaccessible chasms." So that was back in 1605. This guy documented that there were the Barbary apes, the Barbary macaques living on Gibraltar. So that's a long time ago. The monkeys were there. Okay, fast forwarding to 1782, Ignacio Lopez del Ayala, a Spanish historian, like Portillo, wrote of the monkeys. "Neither the incursions of the Moor, the Spaniards, nor the English, nor cannon, nor bomb of either have been able to dislodge them." Speaking of the monkeys. So obviously, Spaniards, Englishmen, and the Moor have obviously taken shots at these monkeys and tried to kill them for some reason. That's just kind of what they did back in the day. Hey, look, there's an animal. Let's try shoot it or fire a cannon at it. But it seems the monkeys were too crafty, tenacious, and cunning to fall victim to any bomb or bullet. So it's pretty funny. So these monkeys have been on Gibraltar for a long, long time. We're not sure how they got there. There is a theory that perhaps people traveling from North Africa introduced them. But we still don't really know. But the Gibraltars have really embraced these monkeys. The British have embraced them. And for a long time, the British have actually cared for these monkeys and given them straight up military care. From like 1915 onwards, the military have kind of been looking after these monkeys. And there is this like superstition that if the rock apes disappear from Gibraltar, the British will lose control of Gibraltar and it'll be taken by, retaken by the Spanish or whoever. So that superstition still holds true to this day because they are still looked after, they are monitored, they have people actually at all times basically monitoring the rock apes. And even back in 1915, they were employing people, military people, to not only bring bits of food and rations for the monkeys. A little bit of the military budget actually went to feeding the Barbary apes. But they also took, documented each birth of each monkey, or whatever monkey that was born, each death. They had obituaries in the newspaper if one of the monkeys actually died. They also would announce each birth, and they actually had like quite a humorous sort of little thing in the newspaper when a rock ape was born, because they had named the apes as well. They used to have things like, let me read it because it was quite humorous. Well, it wasn't that funny, but where is it? Oh yeah. So they would announce births in the Gibraltar Chronicle, and be rock apes, birth to Phyllis, wife of Tony, at the Upper Rock on the 30th of June 1942. A child, both doing well. So that's how they would announce monkeys being born. Like, wife. So Phyllis was obviously the mother, who's married to Tony. Hey, Tony. Actually, that was British mixed with Italian. Hey, Tony. But it'd be more like, because it's controlled by the British, it'd be like, Phyllis, wife of Tony, at the Upper Rock on the 30th of June 1942. A child, both doing well. Or wife of Tony at the Upper Rock on 30th of June 1942. Wife of Tony. Tony's doing alright. He had a shag and gave birth. Actually, Tony didn't give birth. Phyllis did. Fuck that one up. Alright. Anyway, you get the point. The monkeys are looked after by the British. And yeah, they take it very seriously. As of 2020, there are around 300 rock apes on Gibraltar. 300. So the numbers are doing very well. They're stable. They're monitored. And it's pretty impressive to look back on the monitoring of these macaques and the care that was taken for them in Gibraltar. Because back then, you know, conservation, you know, it wasn't really that important for a lot of places and a lot of people to conserve a species. Obviously, they weren't conserving them for, you know, conservation significance that the population of these monkeys are declining, so we need to conserve the species. It was more to do with like that they were kind of mascots, and obviously the myth that if the macaques disappeared, British will lose control of Gibraltar. So it doesn't really matter, you know, in the grand scheme of things, why they were conserving the rock apes, as long as they were doing it, you know. Obviously, that's the important thing, is they were looking after these monkeys. It's a shame that it isn't happening where the monkeys are native to, in North Africa and the Atlas Mountains there, because the numbers are actually declining. But the mystery is how the monkeys actually got there in the first place. And to be honest, it's not really of any, it's not a coincidence that there are Barbary macaques found in Gibraltar, and Gibraltar's like a stone throw away from where they're native to, just across the Strait of Gibraltar there. So they could have quite easily made it across that small body of water as stowaways on ships, you know, sold as pets. You know, it's happened before. It's happened in Mauritius with long-tailed macaques. They are now found in Mauritius from being brought over on Dutch ships and things like that. So it's not a crazy coincidence that there are Barbary macaques on Gibraltar. It's strange how they've kind of all gathered on Gibraltar when, you know, there are other parts of that peninsula that they could have made it to, but they're only really on Gibraltar. Maybe they were looked after on Gibraltar more and not anywhere elsewhere. But there is a theory, another theory as to how they got to Gibraltar. Sorry, I just burped then. Just had an energy drink. And it's pretty cool. Like, I really love this theory. It is probably the most far-fetched of the theories, but it's my favorite because it's a mystery. and it involves cool things. So one of the theories is that the Barbary macaques, the rock apes, made it to the Rock of Gibraltar via a subterranean cave system that goes from Gibraltar under the Strait of Gibraltar, so under the sea, and to Morocco, between Lower St. Michael's Cave. So Lower St. Michael's Cave is a known cave in Morocco. And as far as I'm aware, it's pretty long, but I think they've found like the end to it. And it certainly doesn't end in Gibraltar or anywhere near it. But that's not to say that at one point that cave system did reach Gibraltar under the ocean. And the only reason why they found an end to that cave system is because of collapse and things like that. So yeah, the theory is Barbary macaques entered the cave, did a Forrest Gump and just kept on running, kept on walking all through the cave until they eventually exited at an exit point on the Rock of Gibraltar. I mean, that is cool. That is really cool. Just like the fact that this cave system, they say, went under the sea. That's cool. Kind of like the channel. Is it the channel that goes under the ocean from like Britain to France or Germany or whatever it is? So it can happen. That was man-made, mind you. But yeah, that would be really cool. I think it would be worth an investigation. And like a few years ago, I was thinking about this. It'd be cool to like explore that cave system. Or they could do things like LiDAR or what's that, ground penetrating scans, like what they did with the pyramids recently, and apparently found structures under the Great Pyramids that go like a mile underwards. Underwards, is that a word? It is now. Or under the pyramids, like cylinders that are covered in a spiral shaped thing. Not confirmed, but it's an interesting thing. But the technology does exist to penetrate. I believe they use satellites as well to assist in it, and it like basically X-rays the land, and you can see quite a ways underneath the land. I'm not sure how well it works with water, but it'd be pretty damn cool to like do something like that and see if there are is a cave system that goes under the ocean that's been blocked off via collapse or anything like that. It would be pretty damn cool. Worth investigating. I might look into it, get some funding. But I just think it's cool that I do like when there is a weird population of animals in an area that they're not supposed to be. Just like my last episode, was it my last one? Latest episode, I think, was the monkeys in Australia. That's cool, but it was never confirmed that there were actual monkeys here. Although it can be detrimental to native wildlife and things like that, I completely understand that. With the Rock of Gibraltar, it is such a small area, not that much biodiversity around that rock, and they are controlled, so the population is controlled. It's basically like an open safari park for these monkeys. They don't move away from that Rock of Gibraltar. Very rarely they come into town. They're not breeding out of control and spreading into Spain and throughout Europe. But, you know, it is damn cool. I just like monkeys. And I love they've got a little colloquial name for them, the rock apes. Oh yeah, you've seen the rock apes, things like that. And you can go up onto the Rock of Gibraltar and visit the monkeys. It's like a popular tourist destination. So yeah, if you've never seen a photo of Gibraltar or know where it is on the map, look it up on the map and you'll see how unusual this place is. It is weird. Beautiful place. Really beautiful. It's like just this giant, like, looks like a bloody meteorite asteroid sticking out of the land with vegetation growing around, and just a little town around the bottom of it, and then it's blocked off to Spain just by a runway, like by an airport. Very unusual place. My dad was actually stationed there when he was in the British Air Force briefly. And yeah, my grandparents have been there a few times and things like that. So it's a cool place to visit. If you're ever in Spain, you can nip over to Gibraltar. If you're ever in Gibraltar, nip over to Morocco. Look for that cave system. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting thing. I hope you do too. And I'll see you next time on another episode of Thorn's Jungle. Take care, everyone.